what we really need to look to today, and what I really want to spend time with you today is on tax reform. And if you look at tax reform today, it's more than just cutting every tax. It's how do you collect the requisite revenues you need to run government. That's really what you want to know. The theory underlying taxes here, it dates back to Henry George, who was an economist in California in the 19th century. And what you really want to do on taxes, and I think you'll see this fairly intuitively, is you want to tax those things the most that can escape the least. And those things the least that can escape the most. If you tax something and it leaves for whatever reason, you don't do anyone any good. You don't collect any money and the people leave and you lose all their productive resources. So what you want to do is tax those the most that can escape the least and those the least that can escape the most. Now, normally in tax issues, it's really hard to really figure out what can and what cannot escape because there's so many ways of escaping. What happens is this devolves into a very simple thing of the most optimal tax, if you don't know all the elasticities, is a low rate flat tax. And I'm going to describe it to you this way because there are two types of incentives in this world. There are positive incentives and there are negative incentives. By way of illustration, if you beat a dog, you know where the dog won't be, but you have no idea where the dog will be. The dog's going to take off, but you don't know what direction. If, on the other hand, you feed a dog, which is a positive incentive, you know exactly where the dog will be when you have the food. It's going to be right there by the food. Positive incentives tell you what to do, and negative incentives tell you what not to do. Don't put your hand on the hot stove. The stove doesn't care where your hand is as long as it's not on it, because it'll burn it. All right? If you look at taxes, taxes are negative incentives. They tell people what not to do. Do not report taxable income. They don't tell you how not to report the taxable income. You can use evasion, avoidance, underground economy, moving to another location. I moved from California to Nashville, Tennessee because there's no income tax in Tennessee. I paid for my house in my first year's tax savings. Woo-hoo! I thought of the beach in Southern California. I looked at my house. It's not worth the trade. I like the house. I'll keep it. I mean, it's just amazing. They can change the location. They can change the timing of their income. They can change the volume of their income. They can change the composition of their income. Our wonderful friend, Warren Buffett. If you looked at his balance sheet today, you know, he does all this stuff. You should raise tax rates. What a hypocrite. If you look at his balance sheet, he's got $57 billion, at least according to Forbes, in wealth, which is all in a form called unrealized capital gains on Berkshire Hathaway stock. Do any of you know what the tax rate is on unrealized capital gains? It's 0. Did he recommend removing that and taxing unrealized capital gains? Not! And how about his gift of $1.6 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? What's the tax on that one? Oh, 0 again! I mean, don't you wish you had enough money to be able to give away $1.6 billion this year? Wouldn't it be fun? You know, he didn't recommend any of those. What he recommended was he raised his tax on everyone else. If you look at this, and I'm using your definition of income, Douglas, when you were head of the CBO, I stole it right out of your testimony. If you use the Simon definition of income, it's the increase in your wealth plus the amount you spend and give away. Warren Buffett in 2010 had an income of $11.6 billion, not the $40 million he claims as taxable income. He paid taxes of $7 million that year. That's 0.06% of his income. And then he recommends that you go after the billionaires there by raising tax rates. The only way the poor can ever become wealthy is by earning income. The income tax is not a wealth tax, and it doesn't hit the richies. The income tax hits people who want to be rich, who are trying to earn it. And if you make the tax codes hard enough, no one will ever be able to become prosperous in this society. We've got to reform the tax codes to make it sure that people can become prosperous. The dream in America has never been to make the rich poor. The dream in America has always been to make the poor rich. Or if I can do Jack Kennedy's quote here, which I loved, the best form of welfare is still a good, high-paying job. You know, you can't become prosperous on handouts. honest people. You know, have you ever heard of a poor person spending or taxing himself into prosperity? It's stupid. I mean, it's just plain ignorant. And that's where these policies go.